Well, welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Tanner O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at Action Coach in Central Texas. And today I'm sitting down with Andrew Walsh, who is the owner of Terra Dura Landscapes. Excited to be jumping in, having some conversation, talking about business, about entrepreneurship, about this crazy journey that many of us are on. So, Andrew, first and foremost, thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today and have a little bit of conversation. Maybe we can just start with a little bit of background. Share kind of with us, with the audience here. What's your background, and tell us a little bit about Terra Dura Landscapes.
Sure. Yeah. So I actually went to school and studied philosophy, which is really helpful in landscaping. And then I went to grad school and ended up doing theology. And I dropped out of grad school after I got engaged and moved back to Austin. I was originally from Austin, went away to school. We decided we didn't want to set up our life somewhere else. This was in the midst of 2009, and moving back to Austin trying to find a job was challenging. And I was actually driving a pedicab, which is like a little bicycle with seats in the back. And then I took a job part time doing landscaping for a company, and it was kind of eye opening. The type of work they did was restoration and wildland seedings and wetland ponds, and I needed to pay the bills, so I was just working there. But once I started to learn all the plants and started to, like, my eyes became open to the Texas uh, environment, to the Texas ecosystem, and I was really kind of fell in love with it, and I was really passionate about it, and ended up eventually starting my own business. After working there for a few years, I started my own business doing more of the residential construction side of things, with an emphasis in native plantings and an emphasis in just trying to help people conserve water, because that's a big problem we face around here, is lack of water. So we started off just me, like truly chucking a truck kind of thing. And I, got more jobs, got more employees, and we grew bit by bit. And I grew in knowledge. We're about a little over 10 years in, and we're cruising. So we focus mainly on construction now. We've stepped away from maintenance, and we put most of our emphasis on building projects. Someone comes to us and says, "Hey, I want to add a patio in my backyard. Can you help design it and install it?" So we do everything from the design initial meeting to all the way to the finish up. So
Very cool. I've got so many questions. I'm going to start with maybe the earliest on piece of this. So, uh, graduate with a degree in philosophy,
yeah.
went to grad school for theology. Huge transition and pivot to what you're doing today. What kind of led you down the philosophy theology path to begin with, and then what was kind of the catalyst that said, nope, this isn't the path I want to be on, and kind of making some of those early changes.
Yeah, well, I started in philosophy and I really loved it. I love books, I love reading, I love talking about kind of big ideas of the world. And then went on to theology, and while I still love the books, I still love learning. I got to this point where I realized basically what I'm doing is paying people to tell me which books to read. And I kind of became obsessed with the idea of being a doer, not just a teacher or a thinker. I wanted to do things, I wanted to create things, I wanted to be part of the movement that was helping to continue, like on the labor side, like continue to build our economy, but also at the end of the day, look at something, go, yes, I built that.
Nice.
So
That's
I end up, I still, still love reading, still do all that stuff, but I grew to learn that school, especially in my industry, wasn't necessarily the thing I needed. And so it's easy to kind of walk away from that last master's degree and be like, okay, I could still grow, I could still learn, I could still do all these things, but I don't have to be working in that field.
yeah. And I love it. I resonated with it personally. My degree's in psychology. I had a minor in religion. Thought I was going to go off to seminary, something like that. And went, nah, that's not my path. But paying somebody else to tell you what books to read, I absolutely love that, and I may have to steal it and use it at some point down the road. But I love the realization, or the kind of the thought out there of there's so much that it can still be taught and learned, even if the formal education system isn't the path to move forward. And I'm sure you've had a tremendous number of learnings across the years, from the industry that you're in to just building business, that sort of thing. So let's talk a little bit about that, and then we'll kind of pivot back to talking about the business itself, and some of that kind of stuff. But as you look at this journey that you've been on over the last 10 plus years, are there any lessons, especially in business, that kind of stand out to you? Let's say, I'm sure there's many, but are there any that kind of stand out to you that were more, I don't know, impactful or pivotal to kind of the business person that you are today from this journey?
Uh, yeah. So early on, I um, I was probably like 2 years in, and I was looking for coaching. I was looking for business coaching, and I went to SCORE, which is a nonprofit, and I sat down with the guy. He was a CPA. He was elderly, like in his late 80s, and he just wanted to help people. And so I sat down with him, and I said, "Okay, I want to talk about how to like build something big and awesome and like really big company that can keep growing and doing all these cool projects." And he said, "Well, what do your books look like?" And I was like, "Well, I got a stack of receipts in my truck that I haven't got to in the last 3 months. And, uh, I'll get to those. And that's interesting. Like, I want to know where I stand. But, like, for now, I just want to talk about what the future looks like and what can I do to get in the right place?" And he's like, uh, "I don't think we can continue in this meeting. Why don't you go home, put all your receipts in, and then call me when you're done?" I was like, "Wait a minute, like, I want to like talk about this. I want to grow." And he's like, "No, not until you get that right." And so I remember it took me like 6 months to feel like I had like the financial side in order. And I remember I ran into him at another event, and he's like, "You get those receipts done?" I said, "Yep." And he said, "All right, let's meet." And so I started meeting with him after that. And what I learned in the process was just like I was running my business based off of pure ego. I was just
Mhm.
there because it was exciting and I want to build new projects and all of that. And he was saying, "No, you have to have the structure. You have to know where you stand. You have to track, get ahead of these projects so you know how to invoice in the future and all of that," which I just had. I was like, I'm making money. I just some money, and I just had no idea where I was standing. So he helped, like, just pull me in, rein me in, and actually, we like we started growing after that point.
How how difficult was it, or easy was it, for when you made the decision to say, all right, I'm going to take on this project and take 6 months and really understand putting the finance piece together? Was that a difficult transition, or was it just as soon as kind of I don't know, the switch turned in your brain that it's just got to get done, it was fairly easy at that point? What was that experience like in making that transition?
Well, it was, I he was a good coach because he had the financial side. That's where he was coming from. Was like, here are the you got to get your finances right. And so I didn't know. I just was like, okay, I got to do my receipts. I did all my receipts, and when we started meeting again, we started discussing like, okay, this is what your overhead is, and this is what your cost of goods sold is. And he really helped me break it down in such a way that like I could start making sense out of the business and what I was doing with these receipts and where I was going to be spending money in the future and where I like essentially where I've already spent the money and like what's going to be continued And so I didn't know anything. Like I had no business background. And so he really helped me walk through those steps to understand like you have to like understand what's happening on the business side so that you can grow. And it was like going back to ground zero. And so it took me about a year to really kind of master that before I could move on.
How does that look in the business today? Is that just kind of automatic? Do you do a lot of that still, or is it, hired out to bookkeeper, CPA, things like that? How is that shifted from that learning experience and kind of going through it to where maybe the business is at today?
So I went through the experience, I understood it, and now I've moved over to a bookkeeper. But I could look at the reports and understand like what's happening. I could look and pull numbers and understand what my overhead is and what's going to continue to be that. And so I have room now to like pull back and not be in the trenches of putting in the receipts every single day, but actually understand the numbers once it's all said and done. So it's been good now because you know I can go back quarterly and say, all right, my overhead's changed. It's this much now. I could dedicate more towards, if that's a truck or whatever it is, whatever the next purchase we have to make. I know that I have room to do that.
Fantastic. So I want to ask a question. Usually I kind of start off with this, but we went down some fun pathways based on kind of the experience that you've shared. I always like to ask just like generally role within the business. And whether you're just starting out, you're wearing literally every hat in the business to then as you continue to grow, you get to take some of those off and hand them to other people. So I always like to ask kind of for you today in the business, what role or roles plural do you currently play in the business?
Well, it's always a rotation, and it's been a rotation from the very beginning. But um, I have project managers now, so I have people in the field with their feet, seeing what's happening every day, reporting back, and then I've previously had designers. I currently don't have a designer, so my hats are sales, design, some light project management. I'm doing all the financial stuff with the business as well, and so and then motivator in chief. So I'm doing all of that still. It varies depending on the season, but right now we just went through a cycle of employees and we're just refreshing, and so I'm taking on a lot of more roles at the moment. It probably won't be that way in the future, but for now I'm doing a significant side of the sales portion. The every day out on a job I'm doing far less of.
Awesome. I love the context there. When you look at kind of that broad spectrum of different areas within the business, are there any that you gravitate to more that you absolutely enjoy? And kind of flip side of that, are there certain ones that you're like, if I can avoid doing this at all costs, that would be the first one to go?
Yeah. um I spend a lot of energy on sales because I'm always like, we gotta make the money. So I do like to go get new sales. I do like to do all the follow-ups. And I have my hands in everything. So if I'm seeing, a customer kind of frustrated or anything comes up, I'm there. And I think of myself as a good problem solver. And so when I think about these designs and putting together landscapes for people, I like to meet with them up front because I'm like, I'm trying to solve for their problem. And their problem might be, I want a new space in my yard, but I have too much sun. I have this or that. I'm spending too much on water. I need to cut down. Those are the problems that I like to solve. Um, the design side of things is a lot of fun, but very time consuming. And so if
Mhm.
there's times I could push that off, I will push that off. And then the project management, I'm generally trying to get my project managers to do their role and do it better. And so trying to get them to take responsibility for those things.
Very cool. That I think it's a fairly good segue with what you've shared so far. I always like to ask, who do you primarily serve? Yeah, the way I like to frame it is if I'm sitting in the audience, and how would I know that I'm a really good fit for y'all services, or I might know somebody who'd be a really good referral for you.
Hmm. Yeah, our clients are mainly residential. So if someone has a nice house, but they haven't touched their yard and it's just kind of they never go outside, I like to help people get outside. And so the clients who have some money to spend on the outside of their home, they're not looking to build it themselves. They want it to have a professional look. That's really my ideal client. And then additionally, we like to do like small commercial projects, something that like a restaurant or a storefront. Those are fun for us. We like to go out and just kind of have that experience of point and be like, yeah, I did that.
Very cool. Given this time of year and the wonderful heat and lack of precipitation that those of us here in Texas have experienced for the last 2.5 months. Um, I don't know, what advice would you give, or what things should people be thinking about? I don't know if there's others on this call or on this that are listening later on that will look out their window and realize how crappy their yard looks today. I know mine does. What types of things should we be thinking about given the climate, given the dryness that I think we've
Mhm.
experienced the last couple years, that seems to be more prevalent than it has been in the past. What advice or things would you recommend that the audience think about in conservation of water or things like that?
Yeah. Well, first off, I like to say that native plants are well adapted to this area. They handle the heat, they can handle the cold. I mean, we saw in the freezes that happened in the past couple of years, we saw a lot of these plants that aren't coming from here. They were brought in and sold because they're a good evergreen bush. They all died. And so I would say, first off, native plants are the way to go. And there's beautiful flowering ones, and someone who knows the trees and the flowers, they tell you the ones that all season will be blooming all summer, even in the hottest temperature. The next thing is really when it comes to grass, typically in most yards, it's just corner to corner grass, and we have to irrigate it to keep it alive. So what I say is just minimize the amount of grass to usable grass space. So the perimeters, the stuff up close to the house that you're not going to be using, like running, kicking a soccer ball on, convert those over to native gardens. And then if you can, minimize the grass space and use something that's appropriate for whether it's meant to be in shade or sun. So there are different types of grasses that grow better in the shade and others that grow better in the sun. And then I also say just know yourself when it comes to irrigation. A lot of people will be like, I want to spend $20,000 on putting in this new grass and native plants. But the warning is if you aren't going to be out there with a hose, if you're not that type of person that's going to walk around and water all your plants every week, chances are you still have to do an irrigation system. And there's efficient ones, there's measures of efficiency you can have, but just know that you have to, like, if that's not you with the hose out in the garden every day, then you got to be the guy who puts in the irrigation system, spends the extra dollars, and then does the work to make it a highly efficient irrigation system.
Hmm. That is a tremendous wealth of knowledge, and I absolutely love that. Uh, I've got to ask some questions around marketing. I always love asking questions on it. It's one of those areas that's important to every business out there, but isn't always the one that just is easy to connect for, especially newer business owners, that sort of thing. When you look at kind of y'all's philosophy to marketing, how do y'all get the word out there? What has worked for you? What are some things that maybe you've tested in the past that haven't worked so well? But kind of what has been your approach?
So when we first started, the first thing we did was put up a website. I People have conversations about SEO versus paid ads. Um, when I had a brand new website with not much of a portfolio on it, I found the value was getting out there and just putting up ads. It brought in more immediate revenue. Um, and then like I didn't really have a philosophy to what I was posting or what I was doing. I just got on, made my website, got connected on all the different platforms, whatever, Instagram, Facebook, Google, all that stuff. I put myself up there. And then I started focusing. Later on, we started focusing about like kind of the message, and the message we just like we kind of moved towards was that we are having fun, like we're out there having a good time, and so we have ridiculous posts out there on Instagram of us. One of them was like we were throwing dirt into each other's faces and just like drinking Modelo beer and just like sitting around like having a good time, and like we do this kind of stuff on many of our posts, and the feel is like someone wants to join because it's like we're fun, we're having a party, and we're going to come create a party space in your backyard. And so we have a lot of people who are like, it looks like you guys are having so much fun out there. And while that may not be true all the time, like just it felt like it was a lot better of a message to put out there rather than just like, here's a picture of something pretty, here's a picture of something pretty, here's a picture of
Mm.
something pretty. We focused our energy on like, hey, let's get out there and have fun, and let's take a few videos of it on occasion.
Man, absolutely love that. Um, do y'all get like the vast majority of your business coming from that type of stuff at this point, or is there like a channel that tends to be the most productive in terms for you to just have some initial conversations?
We're about 50-50. The searches, just kind of organic searches coming in to our website, and then 50% still Google AdWords, and
Mm.
then of the organic searches, high likelihood that most of those are just referrals from either they saw our company on the street or they heard about us from a friend.
Very cool. I love that. I appreciate you sharing a little bit of it. I know it's like I said, it's one of those areas that the more other entrepreneurs and business owners kind of hear what has or hasn't worked in different industries, kind of helps connect some dots in certain ways. So as you look towards the next 3 to 5 years, where does the business go as you continue to grow or scale? How does your role change and shift over the next 3 to 5 years?
So I still feel like I'm pretty young. I got a lot of energy in me. I still am very active in the business, and I'll probably remain that way for the next 3 to 5 years. We are looking at, we're in between 2 to 3 crews right now of installation teams. People are out building stuff. I would love to be in the place where we're at 4 installation crews and then a gardening team. And to get spinning back up the maintenance side of things is tough, but if we're going to focus more on a niche market of gardening services versus a mow and blow service, I just found that having a niche is a happy place. So we have our niche is kind of xeriscaping, and so trying to promote natives, low water usage plants, and so there's a big lack in the mow and blow community of how to take care of these gardens. And so for the people we've installed for, and for these nice hotels, restaurants that have all these native gardens, how do you care for them and how do you keep them up? And I think that's an easy place for us to move into, where we've been previously, but we just had to pull out because of labor issues.
Mm. I like that. That's a really cool way to continue to grow and really look at how to capture the same slash different market. Is labor kind of been the only hurdle to making that leap, or do you see anything else that's going to be a how do a challenge point for you to kind of implement some of that as you move forward?
So in the gardening realm, maintenance realm, there is a lot of competition. There is, anyone can go out and do maintenance. It doesn't require specialty tools. You just show up and do the work. It doesn't mean that it's not easy to get in and replace someone, but just at the level of folks that we're bringing in who are building steel pergolas and building retaining walls, that type of person is paid a lot higher than your maintenance person. So making that jump, that leap in between is the challenging part. um, and then finding reliable labor is always an issue. And so getting we've moved in a direction that kind of, again, our we like to promote, we're having fun. I want to make sure that when I'm hiring, I'm promoting, like, hey, we are not just your run-of-the-mill, like, no name place that's gonna give you a paycheck and you just show up to work and you are managed by some middle manager. It's like you're gonna have a personal interaction with the owner, you're gonna have parties with the owner, we're gonna go camping, we're gonna go do all this stuff. We went golfing at Butler Pitch and Putt last Thursday. Just, we're gonna have a very family oriented type business.
Oh man, that is fun. I love that. Well, I want to be respectful of the time that we have here, and I appreciate you taking as much as we have so far. As we just kind of start to wrap up here today, I always have a couple rapid fire questions for us to jump into. Kind of top head answers for each of them. Best of our ability. Four of them total here. So Andrew, as you look at your journey so far, what would you say is kind of your key to success?
Um, there's that mentality and idea that you got to enjoy what you're doing, and I have enjoyed it, and I try to have fun with it. And if it ever becomes a burden, I kind of flip and try to either have fun with it or change directions.
I like that. If you could give just one piece of advice to other entrepreneurs, what advice would you give them?
Uh, Follow the form. Do the background. Do the business stuff, even though it's not as much fun. Get it done so that you could have the fun.
Is amazing piece of advice. What is one book that either you're currently reading or have read most recently that you would recommend to the audience?
Oh, just read. I'm gonna slip on the name. Um, Comfort Crisis and Michael Easter. It's a great book just about general wellness and health, and also just getting to that place of grit in your daily lifestyle. And so making sure you keep that a part of your work grind is that you get into the midst, get in the flow. It's a great book.
Very cool. I'll have to make sure I put that one on my reading list. Kind of a fun one to wrap up the rapid fire questions here. If you could choose just one area, you can only pick one area in your business that you can sprinkle a little bit of magic dust on, and you wake up and it's like 10 times better than it was yesterday. Where would you choose to put some of that magic dust?
Mm. I'd take magic dust. Yeah, sales. Why not? Let's go.
I love it. For those that are watching that want to continue to follow the amazing work that you're doing, continue to learn more about the industry, to potentially work with y'all down the road. Where can we advise them to go for more information, to connect with y'all? Where's the best place to send them?
Um, our website's terra-dura.com. That's TERRA-DURA.com. We post a lot on Instagram under Terra Dura Landscapes, and connect on LinkedIn with me, Andrew Walsh. That's probably the best place.
Beautiful. Well, I will make sure to put all of that in the video description below. And yes, for those of you that are watching, take a moment after this is over, go click on all those links, connect with Andrew. Making connections here in the business community is always so much fun. Part of the reason why we do these interviews here. So, Andrew, as we wrap up, I always like to end on one final question. And that question is simply this: what is most inspiring to you today?
Mm. I was just listening to a podcast about Lord of the Rings, and as geeky as that sounds, yeah, just talking about all the connections of living a life of virtue and just trying to do your best, live a life of humility, and try to also kind of charge into action has been inspiring for me today.
Very cool. I love that. Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time to be here to share so much of your journey with us today. I'm sure we could probably sit here for another hour and just uncover a whole bunch of things that you've learned along the way. But really and truly, thank you for taking the time to share with us what you have today.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure.
Alrighty, that wraps up the interview. Nice job.